creating conversations with those who share the stories. Arrow.net, ARROE.net. We are unplugged and totally uncut with Dan Hampton.
Morning, Arrow. Thanks for having me on your show.
Well, it's a pleasure, sir, because I want to thank you for what you have done for this nation and other people around the world.
Well, that's very gracious of you to say. I think Bill did a lot more, but I appreciate it.
To put a book like this together, I mean, that's like sitting in front of a mirror and saying, well, hi, Dan, how are you doing? Let's talk about your story.
Well, like I said, I wouldn't put myself in the same category with Bill Harris, but I had a good time writing the book, and I hope people like it.
What was it like for you? Not necessarily the experience that leads to the book, but basically to go through the book process, those conversations and those moments where he would send you something that you were to read.
Well, it's fascinating, because I had his manuscript that he wrote after the war, and his daughter gave it to me, so I was able to really feel like I got to know him in a way that doesn't often come along for a writer. He wasn't there to talk to, so being able to read his thoughts and his expressions of these events that we know about, but not from his point of view, it was really fascinating.
It's a true story, but critics are saying that it reads like an action adventure. Do you still have to go through the same editing process with the U.S. government where they say, "Okay, come on now, Dan, that you can't say this one, but we'll let you get away with this one"?
No, the only time I had to do that was with the first book, because it was within 5 years of my retirement, and it dealt with current military stuff. This is nonfiction and its history, so the government has nothing to do with it, thankfully.
That opens up your imagination to create even more, does it not? And that would put you maybe in control of maybe some shows on Netflix, Hulu.
Oh, well, I think it would be an amazing tribute to Bill if somebody would be interested in picking this up and making a movie out of it, something along the Unbroken vein, It's a great story, and it deserves to be told for everything he and others like him did.
To see the world the way that you saw it, how do you look at what's going on in Ukraine these days and not just first of all, be over there helping out if you could, or number two, staying back here to teach us that mellow out, Americans, mellow out?
Yeah, I think it's a great visual reminder of what we owe people like Bill Harris. If you look at what's happening in the Ukraine, we haven't been invaded since the British came in 1812, right? So, it can't really happen to us like it's happening to the Ukraine. And I fought for my own country, and then as a private military guy, I fought for some others, but I don't have any real desire to go over there right now and take part in that. It's not something I think they need our physical bodies for. They need our military weapons. Mm-hmm.
When you write a book like this, or you're part of a book like this, to me, I'm reminded of Colonel Oliver North sitting down with me saying, create things that these men and women that have served this nation can relate with so they can heal as one. This book is one of those types of books, do you not think?
I do think, like I said, I think it's a graphic reminder of what we need to never forget, which is why I enjoy writing about people like Bill Harris, because, sometimes they get lost in history, but they were real people with real hopes, desires, dreams. They had lives they wanted to live, and a lot of them didn't get the opportunity because they gave them up for the rest of us.
Now, a book like this, with Bill Harris and introducing it to readers and things like that, does that mean that you're relinquishing your stories about him, or do you get to have that continued relationship beyond this?
Well, they're all his stories.
Yeah.
So, I don't really think I'm relinquishing it. I think I'm putting his stories in terms that modern readers can understand.
That's it.
And maybe they learned something from it, right? Maybe they weren't aware of some things, and that causes them to dig around a little bit deeper and fish for some information and get something out of it.
My father always loved books like this. He would look at me and he'd say, these are modern day Westerns because of the conflict and the understanding, the camaraderie, the brotherhood and things like that. And he would always read books like this.
Well, that's nice to hear. I didn't intend to be a writer. I never intended to get funneled down to military history, which is a lot of what I write now, but I really think of it, I look at it as a responsibility to pass these stories on in a way that is not just dry history, but makes people today see these men and women for what they really were.
And in the way the book is written, though, doesn't it also teach the average citizen perseverance, dedication, loyalty, believe in your nation?
All those things. And, it's too easy to forget that these days, right? With what you see and hear in the news and just some of the downright goofiness going on. But I believe in most of my fellow Americans, and I think that spirit, that defiance and that resilience that Bill typified, I think it's still here in most of us, and we would call on it if we needed it.
And listeners need to understand that Bill was this was a part of the continuation in his family, because his father was also in the military.
Right. He came from a long line of military officers, and the interesting thing, and that's how I stumbled on Bill's story to begin with, the interesting thing is his father was a Marine general, and they were both involved in the South Pacific at the same time. Never in the same place, but they were both there fighting. So you have to imagine how hard it must have been for the women in their lives back then. There was no instant communication, no texts or cell phones. They didn't know where these guys were for a couple of years. That had to be awful.
I mean, I can't imagine what his father went through at the age of 25. I mean, he's captured by Japanese forces. I mean, we as real people don't understand that type of thing that would happen.
Right, and the imperial. I'm talking about Imperial Japan, not modern Japan, but Imperial Japan, and what you're seeing out of the Russians in the Ukraine are very similar. They're both barbaric. And people need to remember that when they get down on the U.S. military. We always go to extreme pains not to cause civilian casualties if they can be avoided. We try not to just indiscriminately level buildings and wipe out things. And that's stock in trade for the Russians. They're behaving barbarically, and I'm going to look forward to watching them crash and burn.
You and me both. But the thing that especially with the way that you've served the nation and the places that you've gone, sometimes I think that the enemy is the media, because it's almost like they're looking for something so they can have clickbait.
Yeah, and I understand the media's point of view up to a point. They're looking for a story, but I really wish most of them would work with us instead of trying to work against us. You have to remember, in the end, we're all Americans. Okay, we're all Americans, and we're all basically on the same side, and sometimes I think they put their stories ahead of that.
Bill Harris received the Purple Heart. I wish more Americans understood the true purpose of the Purple Heart and honored it even more. I wish there could be a Purple Heart Day in America.
Well, that's nice. You usually get it for being in the wrong place at the wrong time, right, like I did. Bill certainly earned his, and I wish you're right. I wish that would happen. I wish more people were aware of what it really meant.
So now we were talking about your other books and things like that. When did that journey begin? And was it just a form of I'm just gonna write because I need to release what's inside my heart?
It wasn't so much that as I was a mercenary. I'm sorry, a private military contractor at the time. And I just had another very close call, and I'd gotten wounded again. And my son was about to be born, and it occurred to me I should write down something about myself in case anything happened to me. And that turned into the first book, the Viper Pilot book. And I was surprised then that it did so well. I'm very gratified, but it did very well. And the publisher said, "Well, what else have you got?" And so one thing led to another, and that's where we are today.
Will there be more books about World War II? Because it cannot become the forgotten war. Too much went on, and my father served in World War II. My grandfather in World War I. So I mean, this cannot be forgotten.
Well, and you make an excellent point, and yes, there will be. I'm under contract to write one more at the moment, and there's a couple more that are pending. But what you said is exactly true. We can't let this be forgotten. World War II is so popular with people because it was probably the last black and white period in our history, right? I mean, good was good, bad was bad, and everybody was fighting for what they knew was a just cause. That hasn't happened since, really. And that the sacrifices that these guys made were just incredible when you learn a little bit about it. And some of the movies do justice to it, like The Pacific and Band of Brothers. They go as far as they can go, but I think you can really carry it to the next level with books, and that's what I keep trying to do. One
of the things that I've been out in the public eye and talking with listeners and stuff like that I've noticed that Generation Zers as well as millennials are looking at the Ukraine-Russia situation, and they're going back to read other things about World War II. I mean, it's amazing how the generations are connecting because of the darkness of a certain part of the world.
Well, that's good, and what you said is what gives me hope that spirit is still alive in most Americans. I mean, every generation thinks the generation that comes after it is pretty worthless, right? So, the people that came before me thought we were worthless. We don't think much of the millennials. But in fact, again, we have more in common than we have differences, and something like the Ukraine and hopefully some of these books make some of these folks think about these parts of our history that they never thought of before. It's not necessarily their fault. Maybe they weren't taught it. Maybe they didn't have any tradition of it in their family. But the fact that they're interested enough in it to begin reading says a lot, I think, don't you?
I do. Dude, I'm so proud of your voice. I'm proud of the way that you believed in the writing and that you're sharing your stories and things like this because, I mean, once again, you've been selected to help make sure that things are told and shared in ways that really affect people's emotions.
Well, let's do it. I'm glad it's working out.
Absolutely, and I expect to see more books from you. I know you talked about the one, but I don't think you're done.
Well, read the one that came out before this. It's called Vengeance, and it's about the Air Force or the Army fighter pilots that killed Yamamoto. I think you'd probably like that. So look at that one.
What's your website? Because I want listeners to go to your website and show you a lot of love.
It's not a website. I have a Facebook page, though. Nice. It's Dan Hampton Author.
I love it.
And I always respond to messages. It may take me a while, but I will respond. And if folks like the book, I'd say please give me a good review on Amazon. It'll keep me writing.
Dude, please come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you, Dan.
Well, you do the same. If you want to talk about the Ukraine or anything else, I'm happy to do it. Just let me know.
I'll tell you, I don't know how much time I've got here, but my neighbor is over in Ukraine as a journalist. And to talk to him about being in the bunkers and things like that, it would be fascinating to have the three of us together in a conversation.
Anytime you like, just let me know.
I'll do it. I'll find you on Facebook, sir.
Okay. Thanks, Arrow.
Be brilliant today, okay?
I'll try.